I agree with the notion of compassion to all living things. We are all connected. Our actions matter. Karma is a cycle of cause and effect. Virtuous actions create happiness, and non-virtuous actions create suffering. The forces of good and evil are prevalent in our daily lives, yet angels are celestial, benevolent beings traveling from the heavens to earth, protecting humanity. Perhaps the notion and conversations between angels and humans throughout history suggest existence. Those prophets and saints, speaking of divine visions, delivered messages of hope. Truly with hope, we can endure most anything we encounter. Well, on our show, we have topics related to celestial beings, myths, legends, real-life phenomenon, UFOs, Bigfoot, psychics, and signs of empathy or signs of goodness. Now, on today's show, we have a super cool person. We have Reles, and he is a BFRO investigator, a Bigfoot investigator. Before we bring him on, he's going to be on shortly, I would like us to do a visualization relaxation exercise. We will create vivid mental images in our mind's eye, bringing positive emotions such as joy, happiness, and hope. Blessings. Our intention today is to release pain through a source of light. Let's realize connecting your mind, body, spirit to divine light will shed darkness in yourself and unblock your true purpose and passions. Your heart visualization begins now. Please find a quiet space, sit or lay down comfortably. Begin to relax your mind and body. Breathe out old energy and thoughts. Let's deeply breathe together. Let's inhale and exhale 3 times. I'd like you to scan your body for stress or tension from the top of your head, your crown chakra, to the tip of your toes. Let's let go of any featured thoughts that you have in your mind and attachment to. The circling conversation in your mind, let's let it go. If you need to speak them out, do so. Whatever's going on before this moment, let it go. Now I'd like you to imagine connecting to your heart. Whatever that means to you, do you see it? Feeling it? Whatever sensory that you have going on with your heart. I'd like you to ask your heart to let go of pain, anger, and sadness. And I'd like you to identify what that is for you. Let's breathe out those emotions. Try to reach for peace and see light inside of your heart. A beautiful glowing light. Let's accept that light. You are safe. The light grows bigger and bigger, filling the body, your body and bones, flesh and organs. Let's give permission to the light to fill your cells and the space surrounding your body known as your energy field. Let's stay in the moment. I'd like you to check for peace and relaxation. And I will count backwards. 3, 2, 1. Okay, now before we move on, he's coming on any minute, I'd like you to share with you a Buddhist prayer, which is what we do every week. Now, this Buddhist prayer is for peace. So let's focus on the meaning. May all beings everywhere plagued with suffering of body and mind quickly be freed from their illnesses. May those frightened cease to be afraid, and may those bound be free. May the powerless find power, and may people think of befriending one another. May those who find themselves in trackless, fearful wilderness, the children, the aged, the unprotected, be guarded by beneficial celestials, and may they swiftly attain Buddhahood. Well, today's topic is related to our guest, and our topic today is Bigfoot. Now, the Bigfoot phenomenon, known in folklore, the legend of Sasquatch, by many names depending on the language, more than 60 terms of Sasquatch in Indian tribes across North America. Now, Sasquatch means wild child. The elusive species known as Bigfoot is regarded with great respect as a special type of being by the Native Americans. I might butcher these names. The Hopi, the Soy, the Iroquois, the Northern Athabascan, seen as sort of supernatural or spiritual being. Now, it's good luck to see him and have him touch you. Since the 1960s to present time, there's been over 3,500 documented reports in Canada, the US, and southern Alaska. Now, Bigfoot is known as a 6 to 9 foot ape-like creature walking upright on 2 feet, covered in dark brown, black, or reddish colored hair, and he has a foul smell. He lives in the wilderness. This cryptid has a language of sounds, and there's evidence of tracks, footprints, hairs that are not animal or human. There's sightings with similar eyewitness accounts. Now, even the FBI looked into Bigfoot. The famous 1967 footage of Roger Patterson and Robert Grimlin video, and I have a photo up from that. I can't show you the video on this show, but you can look it up. Now, why have people not trusted, that there is a Bigfoot, or believe? There are skeptics. There are many, many people that believe in Bigfoot. Maybe there's the ridicule from reporting. Maybe they'd rather not. Observations have shown us that they're elusive, fear, nocturnal feeling, nomadism, and they travel in groups of 3 no more. So our guest today, just take this down, it's pretty exciting, is Rick Reles. I butcher names. He's a BFRO, Bigfoot Investigator, and BFRO is the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. In 2010, he was driving across the northern Wisconsin with business associate, and he encountered a Sasquatch crossing the road, and he became enamored with the concept of Bigfoot. And thus, he's been speaking at conferences, and he does podcasts, and he's leads annually 6 to 8 expeditions in US and Canada searching for Bigfoot. He has a field guide, which I'll show you the cover of it. I'll show it when he's on. It's called Bigfoot Stick, and he's a consultant for the Animal Planet Finding Bigfoot. He's also a partner in I Know Sasquatch merchandise, and he has Class A, B, and C interactions with Bigfoot. So let's welcome Rick to the show. Okay, where are you?
I'm here.
Hi, Mary. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. Real good. Real good.
Are you real good?
Yes.
Now, you're in North Carolina?
Yes, just outside of Hendersonville, so Western North Carolina.
Okay, so this is not a big time change for you. It's 7
Yeah, I know
o'clock
it's
there,
early.
but still early. It's really, and I
That's
really
early.
appreciate you coming on. I like to catch people when they wake up and, bring light into their life early on or in the day, early in the day. I'm tongue-tied because I'm just excited myself about hearing about Bigfoot. And let's see. I would love to know what. There's so much to ask. What is the class A, B, and C interactions with Bigfoot mean? What does that mean?
So the BFRO, well, thank you first for the introduction, and also talking about the BFRO. You got all that right. It is the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, and they have that database that's out there catalogs witness reports from around North America, the United States, and we classify. I'm an investigator, so when there are witness reports in geography near me, I will follow up with that and talk to the witness and go on out to their location, try to reenact what they experience, that sort of thing. But we catalog those different witness reports, and investigating them, sometimes we find hoaxes or misinterpretations, that sort of thing. But when they're legitimate, we do categorize them. A Class A, to answer your question, a Class A sighting means that the witness could distinguish features on the creature that they saw. That mean it was not a bear and it was not a human. They could tell by seeing enough of the physical characteristics of the creature that it was not a human. It was without question not a human and not a bear, or some misinterpretation. Class B and Class C are each a level off of that. And Class B, maybe you found footprints or footprints, say, on your property that were 14 or 15, 18 inches long, human footprints out in the woods, sort of thing, and it's not from a human. And Class C could be stories that have been passed down or newspaper articles locally about a report or an interaction with the Bigfoot. So we do break it down into 3 levels, but the most meaningful is the Class A, which you can tell indistinguishably you've seen a Bigfoot. And most of the time when people see that, so I take witness reports. I've investigated these in 3 states, in Wisconsin, Tennessee, and now here in North Carolina. But most of the time people aren't sure what they saw. If it's a hunter, because a lot of times you get hunters out in the woods and they encounter one of these, they're shook up a lot of times and afraid to go back hunting in the area, that sort of thing, because hunters think they know a lot about the woods, and when one of these things comes along, all of a sudden, as you described, 6 to 8, 10-foot tall creature, 6'8", 1,000-pound creature goes by them, it kind of rocks their world. So that's where I get involved and try to make some sense out of it and talk with them about it. And people get very emotional sometimes too, relating this. And the good news, though, now with shows like Finding Bigfoot, which was on Animal Planet for a number of seasons, people are more forthcoming with this. They talk about it more now. Where if you're, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, everybody would keep that to yourself. You don't mention that again. And they were afraid to come forward because of ridicule.
I did some reading, and I was reading from that website, and which the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, I was looking at accounts and reading them. And regardless of the year, some of them I was reading back 2005. I don't know how long I think the site's been there since 1995.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
They were all similar.
Right.
And it was just someone else's language. It was very personal. You could see that it wasn't made up because people were writing, there were grammatical errors and spelling, and they were just writing what they saw.
Right.
And a lot of times they were actually not alone. So they were with someone and they said, I said to so-and-so, do you see that? And they said, yes.
Right.
And the other thing that I found striking was there's a protection for Bigfoot, Sasquatch. And reading about the Native American Indians, to me, it was speaking to me that they feel very protective and he's beloved. It's beloved. It's
Mm-hmm.
not something that you go and you want to harm it. And I don't know if you really could. I don't know if it's like when they say elusive, it's traveling. It's traveling at night. It's feeding at night. It's not out in the open, and it knows how to hide. And I don't know where it's going, but they're getting away. They're
Mm-hmm.
not being seen by the public, but they're in forests. I did read, based on that website, that there is between 1 to 6,000 of them. Does that sound right?
Well, so
2
yeah,
to
so
6,000 of them.
yeah, so you've done a lot of research on this, which I think is great,
Yes.
and no, you're doing a great job with it too.
I love
And
it.
no, I really appreciate it, and coming forth and talking with folks that your viewers, and this is good that people get a more common understanding of this phenomena, because it is part of culture in North America. It's gaining more and more popularity, and more. It's okay to talk about it, along with other things that are paranormal, whether it's apparitions or ghosts or the UFO phenomena. There's more and more exposure of this type of thing today.
Mm.
It's okay in the culture. It's okay in society to talk about it. And this area that I've spent a lot of last 10 or 11 years or so researching. I know it's real. I've had multiple Class A encounters where I've seen these things.
Tell
But
us, tell us what that was like. I'd love to hear that experience.
so no, I'm glad I will tell. But to answer your comment on what you just said before, we don't know what the population is. So we're always trying to estimate that. This will sound crazy, but I know a very well-accredited anthropologist thinks that there's close to 2 million of these things in North America.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's true, that's a lot. And then there are other estimates in the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. The truth of the
Mm-hmm.
matter is we do not know how many there are.
Mm-hmm.
It is not to dispel a notion, though. It is not a single entity.
Mm-hmm.
Bigfoot is a him walking around Northern
Mm-hmm.
California or the Pacific Northwest by itself, and once in a while it's
Mm-hmm.
spied. There are a lot of these, and they're social and they're in groups. I would, based on my research and my experience, I would want your viewers to know there's never one of them.
Mm-hmm.
They're always in groups,
Mm-hmm.
which helps them stay stealth and helps them stay on the edge of civilization, if you will. But
Mm-hmm.
they're opportunistic eaters. They're omnivores. They can eat just about anything. They follow, food, whether it be, crops, or if it's game that they're following. They will be around water sources.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got an awful lot of forested land in North America. We think that we know where everything is.
Mm-hmm.
Even your typical state or federal parks and forests. That's a great
Mm-hmm.
image. I like that one.
Mm-hmm. That's from the website.
Yeah, I know, and that's a good one. I've used that one in some of my presentations too. I love that one. I know
It's showing how big they are.
and it's true. It's shocking how big they are. But so just to and leave that up for a second. But
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of them out there. They're never singular. They work in groups. As I said, they're opportunistic eaters. They can eat all kinds of things to subsist. You said they, travel at night and not during the day, but they do move around a lot at night. They're nocturnal, but they're active during the day, and
Mm-hmm.
they're great observers. We get a lot of witness reports of these things on the edge of a property, watching kids play somewhere in the backyard, around a fire at night, that sort of thing. So they're great observers of humanity and humankind. We're kind of
Mm-hmm.
like their entertainment television, if you will, and they do watch us, so they're out there. But one other point you made is, a lot of you've heard of boogeyman over the years, and people say, tell the kids, don't go out in the woods. Boogeyman will get you, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you look on maps around the country, you'll see Booger Holler, name of an area, or Devil's Fork or Devil's Woods. You get a lot of these type of terms that are used geographically, and some of that I think has to do with, or those of us that research this think that has to do with history of resident Bigfoots in the area.
Mm-hmm.
But every encounter with these things is not a negative. It's not necessarily a monster. If they don't want you around, they're going to let you know. But that encounter, that image that you have right there, gives some great scale, and does show you what it's like. You and I were talking. I'll show you real quick. Just to get some scale, and as long as you have that up there, I'm going to show you something really quick.
Okay.
So here's a footprint cast.
Right.
I'll put it up so
I want to
maybe.
I want to take this down so that we can see more on the screen. You
Okay.
know, I'll take that down.
All right. So I'll put it this way so you can see the feet. But this one is about. This is a cast of a
Mhm.
footprint of what we think is a male Bigfoot. This is from
Mhm.
Kentucky,
Mhm.
and you can see in scale how big this is.
Right.
So I'll bring it back
Wow.
so you can see. But this one is it's about 15 and a half inches long, and
Mhm.
it's about 7.5 inches wide, which is I've got a number of different casts that I've cast over the years, but this gives you representatively what an 8 foot tall Bigfoot would be like in
Mhm.
scale. So your picture was pretty good. I'm glad you put that
Mhm.
up there. Now,
Mhm.
if that Bigfoot if was encountered and it left a footprint on the ground,
Mhm.
this is about what the footprint would look like.
Mhm.
So
So
give
if
some real perspective.
you're saying that you have more than one cast. I did see after looking online, I did see one man, I don't remember his name. I know he was the one doing Finding Bigfoot. He had a collection of casts.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
you probably know who I'm referring to. And are the other casts of similar value as that one that you have?
yeah. Well, so we're always looking for evidence, and so I'd like to make this point for any of your listeners, viewers. Um, you would think with research, we're trying to find proof all the time.
Right.
Get a body, capture one, hunt one. Well, those of us that are real dedicated researchers, we're not hunting. We're out
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
observe and
Right.
understand the behavior of these things. I already know they exist.
Mhm.
And those of us that are serious about it are really in that mode, not trying to hunt and gather evidence, trick one of these things. That's not what it's about.
Mhm.
But things that do constitute great evidence are, footprint casts for sure, recordings of their vocalizations. Certainly, anything that's visual.
Mhm.
If you can get a picture, you can get, and a lot of that does happen by happenstance. Tourists out in the woods, filming
Mhm.
an area, and all of a sudden, a Bigfoot goes across in the woods, crosses a trail.
Mhm.
That's typically where pictures of these things come along or videos of these come along. There's been a lot of different ones you can find online.
Mhm.
Um, I would say, a lot of them are online. Some of them get taken down after time, but that's good, visual. Those are good pieces of evidence. So we're gathering a lot of evidence.
Mhm.
But as far as proof, what constitutes proof? Why isn't there why aren't you interviewing a Bigfoot on your show here? Why isn't Bigfoot out there so that everybody can talk about it? I think this creature has chosen to live on the edges, if you will, of humanity and civilization. And I don't know why, but and it's been around a long time. You mentioned the
Mhm.
Native Americans.
Mhm.
They all have, every one of them, all of the tribes in North America have a name for this. And there are Bigfoot type creatures in other parts of the world. So these things are commonly referred to and known in Australia, in Eastern Europe, in parts of South America. In China, it's known as the Yeren in northern China.
Mhm.
So this is not a phenomenon that's unique just to North America. These things do exist in other parts of the world and are
Mhm.
commonly regarded in other places. In Vietnam, in the mountains of Vietnam, you cannot hunt these. There are public laws about it where they talk about it. You can't violate. We've got some laws like this in North America. You'll see them in the Pacific Northwest, parts of Texas. And these things, you'll see signs where you go out in woodlands, whether it's state or federal properties in the forest, and, no hunting and no disturbing of the Bigfoot, that sort of thing. And,
Mhm.
we as researchers online share these from time to time, but there is some acknowledgement, more so now, parks and recreation type people, state forest type people around the country, or there's more talking and more exposure about this because there is more and more evidence piling up.
When I was looking, I went on a government website, our government website. I think it's a they were kind of it was a farce, but they posted this about forestry, and then they had this up here. If you can see, the
Mm-hmm.
habitat of one of America's greatest legends may be at risk.
Mm-hmm.
It's Bigfoot, and then I'm like, what is this? Is this a fake website? It's really a government website. So I look down and there's 7 comments. Okay, so people are going to write something rude or
Yeah,
like,
sure.
no, It
No?
was 7 people saying they'd seen it, and then
Yep.
they were commenting on the other person's comment. I
Right.
was like, oh my God. I don't think that the government had that intention, or maybe they did. You know, I don't know. I don't
Yeah, I don't
know.
know. I think again, it's part of acknowledgement. If it wants to get across the point of protecting the forest, and more power to it. I think that's great.
Right.
I'm sympathetic with our government when it comes to acknowledgement of this phenomenon, because then all the questions from the public, the press, etc., are what we want to know everything about it. Is it human? Is it descendant of ape? Is it a relic hominid? Is it pognid? What type of creature is this? What do we do about it? Is it protected? If it is human and it's DNA, what does that mean? What do we do? Do we tax it? Do we let it vote? I mean, it's hard for the government to know what to do.
Everyone pretends it's not real. It's
Right.
safe, because then it is protected, because no one's like you said, hunting. That would be the
Right.
Whew.
Yeah, I'll show you another cast real quick that I've got here. This is actually a cast. So one of the folks that I know, a gentleman by the name of Tom Shea in northern Kentucky. There's lots of Bigfoots in Kentucky, but lots of Bigfoot groups that research it. But he does a great job with castings of these sorts of things. He sent me this just recently, but this is a hand cast. So you can see where this is impressions from a hand, and over here, over on this side here, is the thumb, and these are the fingers across the top where it had actually reached in and left an impression, in the ground, and then it was cast. So you can see the girth or the thickness of the hands around this when you go across, as you can see. Now look at how thick this finger is compared to mine. So this is all, again, another piece of good evidence. And these are the types of things that we gather when we're researching that are out there. Tom has a great collection. For your viewers, folks that are interested, Dr. Meldrum out at Idaho State, he's written a number of books on this, but Jeff Meldrum, he speaks about this at conferences, but he's got literally, or had access to tens of thousands of these things. So there are a lot of castings of footprints of this phenomenon out there. It's a big creature, and as it gets around, it leaves impressions, in the dirt and in the mud, and people do go on out and cast it.
This is your field guide.
Yes, thank you for
you have on your Etsy page, which is Squatch. Wait, is it Squash? I know Squash.
It's I know Squatch. So there are people, I will say, they believe, but we kind of, I have a partner in this, and he and I, a business partner in this, we launched this a couple of years ago to just share things. We develop our own merchandising. This is our logo, you can see here, but I know Squatch, this is one of them. This is what we call the peeper. So the peeper is the the Bigfoot peeking around. Thank you for that. That's what we call the peeper now, striding or walking. And we tried to depict with original illustrations, what it's like when people see one of these. And one of the most common reported sightings is one of these things peeking around a tree. And hunters report that a lot. And then your visual there of the depiction of this thing moving or ambulating, our strider, we call that. That's another typical depiction. People will see these things walk. You showed the Patterson Gimlin image earlier from the film, which is still great evidence to this day. But that picture, which is a female Bigfoot in that image, is of the the Bigfoot striding or moving like that.
Where did I put that? I might have deleted it by accident.
Okay.
I actually have it right here.
Yes. Yep. That's great.
This is the most famous Bigfoot sighting ever.
Right.
And I actually watched an account. Was it a scientist or someone who was it might have been a doctor, and he talked about a breakdown of the body parts and how this was not a man in a suit.
Right.
And I know there was a man that said that he had done it, and he was on a lie detector test.
Yes.
I saw all of it. But this is the most famous sighting. So tell us about yours. That's what I'm waiting for.
All right. No, I will. I'm glad to share, one or two of those with you. I want touch on something else you showed just a moment ago too, and that's the field guide. But
Right.
any of this stuff this is a field guide which shows Bigfoot stick structures, and
Mhm.
it's sized so that people can take it out with them when they're out in the woods. But
Mhm.
it helps people identify some of the stick structures these things will build out in the woods in an area they're resident, and they're remarkably consistent. You'll see X-type
What?
patterns. You'll see X-type patterns. You'll see asterisks. Sometimes you can find nests or huts that they'll build. There's hoops, that sort of thing. But these are all, in the book. If you're interested, you can see different pictures of these things that you
Totally
can refer
interesting.
to.
I'm ordering that off Etsy.
And that's on Etsy, and a lot of our merchandise is out there too. So enough of the commercial. This is one of our latest hats here, and then we have a lot of stickers and other things that you can get. I know Squatch, but we're always updating different pieces of
Mhm.
artwork relative to Bigfoot because there's a growing amount of interest and people really want to see depictions of this, what it looks like, and are
Mhm.
fascinated with it. We sell shirts and stickers and hats. We'll be in Florida at the end of January at the Florida and Lakeland. There's a conference. I think it might be the first Florida Bigfoot conference, but we'll be at that as a merchandiser, and we'll be at a number of them during the course of the year.
This-
That's a good depiction.
yeah, these are actually from Charles Guthrie, and he
Hmm.
paints Bigfoot, and he's done some book covers.
That's great. Yep.
Yeah, he's an artist. You can find him on Instagram.
Yeah, and
Promoting him.
there's some great ones online. I have a friend of mine by the name of Sibylla Irwin, Irwin. If you look at some of her depictions online, and she from the witness reports then draws these depictions, and
Mm.
so she's got all of hers are derivative of accounts that were shared with her. So just like you would get with, if you had a sketch artist that works with the police department, detective unit, it's the same sort of thing. And
Mhm.
hers are very, very good because those they capture the facial expressions people saw, etc., which is great. So getting back to one of my class A's, or so you mentioned I stumbled into this 10, 11 years
Mhm.
ago because I saw something across the road that I couldn't
Mhm.
reconcile, and in front of a business associate and myself. But I clearly saw the bipedal movement as you showed in the that Patterson Gimlin image. I knew it wasn't four-legged. It wasn't an elk or a moose, which we didn't have resident in that area of northern Wisconsin. And I started to research this.
Mhm.
And so years later, having been I get out on half 6, 8 expeditions a year. We're out in the woods for a number of days at a time, researching this phenomenon in areas where there's been activity. I've seen these things other
Mhm.
times.
Mhm.
And I've had a couple of other Class A sightings and numerous Class B or Class C type encounters where I've
Mhm.
seen footprints or recorded vocalizations, or I've seen a blur as one of these things crossed over a path, ahead of me or behind. But I'll tell just a little of one. I saw one of these things and here's one other point. In the 3 Class A sightings I've had, I
Mhm.
was fortunate enough to have other people also see it with me, so I
Mhm.
was not the only one seeing this,
Mhm.
which is important
So
because
important.
other
Like,
corroborating witnesses.
I saw that.
But yeah, I could. I'll share the others briefly. I saw one when I was on an expedition in northwestern Colorado, deep up
Mhm.
in the mountains, and we were in a canyon, 5 of us, in an area we had scouted out that had all the right ingredients for Sasquatch to be resident, and we had them around us this evening, and it was just after really just after dark, and we could hear them behind us. We were recording them doing they'll do noises, knocks and whoops and howls, and we heard all that. But it's taught research has taught me to look 360 all the time, and while
Mhm.
the 5 of us were fixated looking up trail and over the elevated area of the canyon we were in, because we were seeing some light anomalies, which is another thing. There are things that happen when you're around these things in the woods that are different. I'm fascinated with how you talk about, white light and, positivity and electrical feelings and nature, etc. You get some experiences like this around Bigfoot when you're in the woods, and it's hard to explain. But we were experiencing some of this, and 2 of us, myself and another woman that was with me, she's a sheriff from New Mexico, turned and looked down the trail from where we had come, and there was a 6.5 foot tall Bigfoot standing in the middle of the trail, about 90 feet from us that had stepped out, and it was rocking from side to side like this, sort of like a second baseman or a shortstop in a baseball game. And it was sort of like we caught it. And it had come up behind us, stepped out on the trail, and was observing us. And we saw it clearly for several seconds. It rocked back and forth, and then we saw it take 3 steps off the trail to the side and depart into the woods. But I could, get back to the definitions. I saw it on 2 legs. I could see the facial features. There was no white in the eyes. I could see the flat nose, the face, very round. Not as much hair, dark. It was black, blackish gray, but it had some hair and no neck, really no neck to it at all. Very muscular. The leg proportions are different than humans. So, you could see the arms are long, hanging down past the hips, as it rocked from side to side. So I've relived that a number of times and clearly know that I had a Class A encounter there and saw this. Was I scared? Did I feel threatened? No. Exhilaration? Absolutely. I didn't know it would be there. When you go through one of these types of things, you got to put yourself in a position to maybe have an encounter. But when you go through one of these things, it's hard to sleep, and you're up. It's pretty exhilarating for a couple of days because you're still trying to process what you had just seen. So I can relate to witness encounters where they have seen these things because again, it shocks your mind. People will say to me, my concept of reality has changed. I can't believe I saw what I saw. And you do go through that, even for a seasoned researcher like myself. When you see one of these things, it's amazing.
If you see something that enormous, you would imagine that you'd be scared, especially this big, ape-like creature. But that's not the emotion that comes to you, is it? It's not.
Yeah, so it depends. I've talked to a lot of hunters who will say they got very scared and they'll never go back to the area to hunt again. Now, so what's my take on this? I'll give you my, I guess, quote unquote, professional or amateur researcher opinion on that. So, I think these things understand intent. And if you're a hunter and you're in camo and think you own the woods and you're out there loaded with your 30-06 to shoot and kill something, and you're in an area you've hiked in and you're in an area where they hunt or where they forage or where they bring up their young, you're a threat. And they realize and know what you're doing. And if they don't want you there, they're going to scare you.
Oh, okay.
And so, you'll get the fight or flight response and want to get out of there in a hurry. I've had that related to me many times. I've experienced that. And I always feel like, well, okay, I put myself in a bad spot. I put myself in, their world and they felt threatened. But if they don't want you there, they'll turn the volume up on uneasiness with you and you'll get that fight or flight. We call it zapping. You got zapped, but and we blame it on our.
There's no violence. It's just more or less they're trying to send you in to put you into fear, bring fear to you, so that you leave them alone.
Yes,
right? It's not
until you'll go away.
Yeah.
Now the Native Americans, you mentioned them at the beginning. Native Americans will always say treat these things with respect. They're forest people. They're people of the forest, like themselves. Native Americans talk about trading with them or even fighting with them or coexisting with them historically, but they always will say treat them with respect. And I very, very much believe in that, having spent time in the woods around these things. I find I never go in armed. I never, carry a gun, but when I'm in a position where they are there, if I'm with others, I always, will always try to talk to them, communicate respect. And they're very curious. They'll come around and they can't understand why at 1 a.m. you're out in the middle of the woods somewhere in a clearing listening for them. In an area that they traverse at that time of night. Maybe they're hunting or they're traveling back to a swamp or an area where they have a cache of food, say, and they'll stop and you'll hear them whistle, make whoop noises. They communicate with each other by making a knock type of noise. But you're there, they may communicate with you. You can mimic what they do and they'll do it back to you. You can get a dialogue with them, and it's not a negative encounter. It's going to be very, very positive.
Have you made a sound and then they reply?
Yeah. So one of the characteristics of these things is they're great mimics.
Mm-hmm.
I think it helps them with deflection, so
Mm-hmm.
they can throw us off if we're investigating them. Witness reports all the time. A lot of times around farms that are wooded or have forests, you get reports of noises that they hear out of the woods where they'll mimic the noises they hear on the farm.
Mm-hmm.
So more than once we've heard witness reports where the mother will be calling the kids to come into dinner and name the kids, "Hey, Billy, come on in," and over time they'll hear Billy out of the woods. So these things these things are very, very very, very good at mimicking and very good at observing what we do, and then picking those noises up that they find fascinating and reproducing them. I've had reports of and have heard and recorded and listened to everything from mechanical noises such as power tools to car doors opening and closing, car alarms, other animal sounds that don't exist in the woods. I've heard tropical bird noises, in Midwest in the woods that I know don't exist there. But these things are great mimics and can make these types of noises to throw us off, if you will. So we'll travel down the trail and get away from them. So, or just to play games with us. But they're mimics, and they're kind of funny, and they're a little bit mischief as part of their act too. They will
Mm-hmm.
interact with you in a playful way sometimes too, which is the best type of encounter.
Wow. So you have I read that in 2021 there's 11 upcoming expeditions through the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, and I know you mentioned to me that you do 6 to 8 of them. The states that there's upcoming is Washington, Montana, California, Colorado, Minnesota, Tennessee, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you have some upcoming expeditions, and what would you expect would happen on one, and how do you prepare for an expedition?
So great question. So I'd have to check the number. There's a couple hundred folks like myself around North America that do what I do, if you will, investigate local reports, and there's a handful of us that are active in leading expeditions. Where I am geographically now, I think last year I got out into Tennessee. Within the last year, Tennessee, Georgia, Kentucky, and areas in North and South Carolina. I am co-leading the expedition in upstate South Carolina, so I'll be one of the folks that are helping to lead that, and then I will probably co-lead with some other investigators. Tennessee, I'll help. I'll help them. Some of the folks that are leading those this upcoming year. But I've done this, and probably Wisconsin. I know there's some upcoming later this year, possibly in the UP of Michigan. I've helped lead some in UP of Michigan before. So I'll get out into, my goal would be to get out into probably half a dozen states this year and either lead or co-lead some expeditions, help. But to your question, we will look at witness reports geographically and try to look for clusters and see where these are. And then we'll look for water sources, wooded areas, access points where you can get into the forest or forest lands around there. We'll do daytime scouting, nighttime scouting, where we'll go on out and look for the forest roads to access those areas, and then find some campgrounds, private or public, where we can camp. And on these expeditions, we do presentations, so we bring in folks that are experts that will talk about best practices, equipment that you can use, learnings that they have on the phenomena. People that have written books about it. But then we'll go out in night hikes in groups, and a good group is about 6 to 8 people in a group, and we'll split up, diversify into an area over a half hour worth of travel one way or another, and we'll get out into the woods, and we go on out at dusk, and we come back at 3, 4 in the morning. Sometimes we stay up all night, but we're out in the woods trying to put ourselves in a position to have an experience or an encounter, and we'll scout those areas out during the day, but we do that. We do a lot of daytime sleeping and naps in the afternoon to get ready to go out at night. But we do a lot of at night. These things seem to come closer and get around you. And if you have an experience with them where they've been around, just having these expeditions does not guarantee experiences. Some of it's like fishing. You go to your favorite spots, and sometimes they bite, and sometimes they don't.
Mm.
But you know, when you get out in the woods, you have an experience, especially with someone who's a newbie and is part of this. It's pretty exhilarating.
Mm. So do you have suggestions of what not to do? You know, are there certain, obviously, if they're elusive and they're kind of, you know, not interested in kind of engaging necessarily. I mean, aside from you're saying the sounds and mimicking, do you say, okay, nobody take pictures, nobody flash lights? I mean, what would you suggest not to do if you would like to have a Sasquatch Bigfoot encounter?
Yeah, so that's a very, very good question. I appreciate it, and it's helpful for anybody that is going on one of these and who gets out. You know, we use red lights. So one of the things is lights. So if you're in the woods at night,
Mm-hmm.
and if these things come closer to you and they want to be, you know, they're curious about you and want to be a part of it, and maybe they reveal themselves, and you're having some interactive dialogue, as I said. Worst thing you can do is turn a bright white flashlight on at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's taboo. We really don't want to do that. We try to stay as dark as we can.
Mm-hmm.
We'll use red headlamps. So we'll use, you know, headlamps on our head as we walk, and we use those to walk with because your eyes can adjust to the red lamp, and we find they'll come closer around that. So the red headlamp does not seem to bother them if they see it from afar. So number one would be that. Number two is we really don't want any antagonistic behavior. So you're not out in the woods. Again, I made the point earlier, we're not hunting these things, but you know, if you can attract them to come around or be around you, that's great. You do things that are curious. It's going to sound crazy, but you know, we'll go on out way out in the woods. We'll sit, you know, build a fire sometimes. Maybe we'll sting. We'll show different colored lights. We'll play some. We play Native American music quite often when we're out in the forest. That brings them in. They come in around that all the time. They're very curious, and a lot of that is very calm, soothing type music. It's respectful music, and we'll play that, and that works very well. I've had great success with that over time. So number two would be don't do anything antagonistic. You know, be predictable. And number three, you know, I think you got to be inviting. You got to look comfortable. You know, we always say act like a hiker, not like a hunter, but you got to be comfortable out there, which is tough.
Joining us by the fire.
In the middle of the woods, where no humans or people ever are.
Oh, gosh.
Which is crazy too, because you get people who are not used to being out in the woods, and here they are at 2 a.m. sitting out in the middle of a forest somewhere, and you know, we know there's a Bigfoot peeking around the tree in the dark because we can see the shadows, and they're tossing pebbles at us, or we can see sometimes you can see their eyes, you know, their eyes will emanate sometimes in different colors, like a red or a white or a blue or amber, or even a lightish green. We'll see different colors in their eyes, but you know, they can be pretty far apart and they're peeking around from behind a tree all of a sudden. That kind of rocks people's world if you're not ready for it when you're out there. So for us that have done a lot of this, I'm used to it. You know, some crazy stuff happens when you're out there, but I would say the fourth thing, just to stay open-minded. You know, when you do this and you go out, don't go at it like I'm a skeptic. I'm going to debunk everything. These things aren't real. You just got to put yourself in a position to possibly have an experience and be open-minded. And it's crazy, some of the things that happen out there. You know, I know these things are real. I've seen them. I've experienced them with all my senses. I know they're real. But, you know, I'd ask people when they get out there just to be, if, you know, you get on an expedition, be open-minded, enjoy yourself, and, you know, be careful. But you never know. There are a lot of these things out there. There are a lot of Bigfoots. You know, it's one thing I've learned over all the years. I don't know how many there are. You know, I don't think there's thousands. I don't think there's millions, but some big number in between. There's a lot more of them than we think, because we're a bunch of amateur researchers out there. You know, in the middle of the night, we stumble into these things all the time. So it's, you know, there are a lot of them. They found a way to coexist with us as humanity. And, you know, do I think they're a threat? No, I don't think they're threatening. I think they coexist with us. And the fascinating thing for me is they've got a lot of abilities we don't.
It sounds to me like to encounter one is kind of a mystical experience. I'm really excited to know that there isn't just one, because I never understood it. I didn't understand it. You know, how could there be a sighting in this state and then this state? And for you to say that there's many of them, thousands, possibly more than that, it makes so much more sense. I would have to now go on one of these expeditions.
Well, we'd love to have you. Yeah, we've had some, people. You're very much an empath. It seems. I've studied and watched you. You're very inviting, and we'll talk about white light and getting at a comfort of positivity level that's good for your health and well-being. That type of approach is very good in the woods when you're around these. It's inviting. They'll recognize that. I think they're very much able to understand intent, and they can be empaths, and they'll come around. People like yourself, they will come to, they'll speak to, if you will, and you'll get images or you'll relate things sometimes. And that's our experience when we brought people like yourself. I've experienced some of that too. Get images in your mind when they're around, and you hear words in your mind sometimes. That's the whole side of it that people that are hard skeptics will say, or hard science will say, no, that can't be, that's impossible. Got to be open-minded, but those things happen.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe in supernatural occurrences. I mean, I'm an intuitive.
And I know.
I mean, I get it. I'm not. Yeah, I guess I have an open mind, and I believe in this, and I find it very, very fascinating and intriguing. And I've been very drawn to it. In fact, when I started doing these Angels, God, and Me back when COVID started in February, I did a little segment and talked about Bigfoot. And I talked about the only organization that I had found, and I mentioned yours. And I was telling my daughter last night, I've made some progress, because now somehow I have a researcher from that organization on my show tomorrow. So I'm very happy that you joined us today. Before you go, I want to mention again that your Etsy page, I Know Sasquatch.
Yeah, I know Squatch.
I Know Squatch. I'm sorry. I Know Squatch. It's on the post. Your Instagram, I Know Squatch. You have a Rick. How do you pronounce your last name?
Reles.
Reles?
Yes.
Reles. Sorry, I pronounced it wrong.
That's fine.
I saw on YouTube that you are on Beyond the Forest Radio.
Yeah, I do some podcasts with a gentleman named Sanjay Singhal. He's in the Chicago area, and so I do some podcasts with him. I did 3 in the fall, and I think I have 3 coming up in March of this year too with him. And I'm a frequent guest on podcasts, with folks that are welcoming and open-minded like yourself. And we'll discuss these types of experiences. I just did one a couple of weeks ago with Wandering Ways. I'm just checking out this podcast I just did. So, as we said earlier, there's a lot of growing interest on this. So, I Know Squatch is, we shared, and we put out a lot of published different accounts of this, and share pictures and images people will pass on with us on the Instagram page. And we developed some merchandise that's representative of this, not in a comic way, but in a, representative way. And so we had some fun with it too. But, it's great that, even in the 10, almost 11 years I've been researching this, the interest has grown, just exponentially. And so it's good that people are trying to seek this out. We don't have all the answers. That's not my goal. My goal is to continue the research and continue to do what I'm doing today with you, which is to share experiences, talk about what we've learned. But the chapters are still unfolding. This book isn't completely written.
Well, you're bringing awareness, and I appreciate that. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. So now I'm going to plan in my future to go on one of these expeditions.
Good.
I think I have to, now that I know that it exists. And I don't know. I'm curious. I'm very curious about the unknown, and this is a lot of unknown.
Yes.
To me. So.
Well, and it'll be a great experience for you. So no matter where you go or who you're with, the leaders that are investigators that help lead it, we'll try to put you in a position, that you're not normally in. So, if you're out in the middle of the woods, as I said, 2 a.m, and it's pitch black and you don't know where you are, and you're hearing or you're seeing things that you never thought you would, maybe a white orb goes by, or you see something peek from around, you see lights in the woods, or you hear noises you've never heard. That's what this is about. You try to experience this phenomena, and there's a lot of things around this that are beyond paranormal, beyond normal, or beyond physical, and we're still learning about all that. So I think you'd be a great addition to an expedition. I think you'd be wonderful.
Thank you. Okay, before you go, one quick question: has there ever been any negative? Has there been any negative related to this? Because I'm not sensing there has been. No.
Yeah, I've had some encounters that were uncomfortable. Again, I think I put myself in a position where I was bothering them, or I was in an area that they're resident. I probably shouldn't have been. I was on an expedition in Smoky Mountains earlier this year, and we had them around us. We had a very comfortable coexistence with a group of Bigfoots that night that were they're dashing about and making knock noises, interacting with us, tossing pebbles out in the road in front. One of the members of the group, which was a newer person, turned on a very bright white light, which lit up the canopy of trees above us, and immediately in the ravine below us, where these things were, they pushed over a tree very violently. So it's loud and it shakes things up. It's negative, and we knew. But first thing you do is you apologize openly and say, "All right, we're sorry. We shouldn't have turned the lights on. We know." So they'll react if you're, if you're in their space, they'll react. And they don't. We didn't pull guns out and start firing blindly into the ravine at them or do any of that. Those are the type of behaviors that they don't like, and that's when things get negative. And there are accounts of that. We do read about this. The other thing is we can't characterize every one of them as benevolent and peace loving. They're like humans too. There's good ones and there's not so good ones. So
okay, well,
so you got to be careful.
Okay, yin and yang, balance.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
This morning, and I'm wishing you a happy New Year, which is right around the corner now.
Yes.
2021, and I'd love to stay in touch. And I'm going to order the beanie from Etsy page and a T-shirt, and I have to get some Bigfoot clothing and your field guide. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Mary. I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate your open-mindedness about the subject.
Sure. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
That was so informative. I'm excited. Okay, so the show's time's up. I want to do the gemstone today. And so today's the last show of December of 2020. I know we've all had some chaos in our lives. Hopefully, internally, you've released it. This is a black obsidian stone. It's a powerful cleanser of psychic smog created within your aura. And it has strong psychic protection. This stone is a powerful metaphysical properties that will help to shield you against negativity, which we all need. The energy of these stones will stimulate the gift of prophecy and may boost precognition. Obsidian is a very historical gemstone that has been used as a good luck charm from ancient times. It can return negative energy to the earth because it was very strong connection with the earth, especially lava. This is the reason why it is a great gemstone for protection from evil. See, I didn't even know that, and I have lots of these. I don't want evil. I only want light. Well, thank you for joining me. I'm wishing you well in 2021. Have a great new year. Please like, if you can, my Facebook page, Mary Amy Official. I have a Twitter, Mary Amy Official. My website is maryamyofficial.com. Let's construct only positive thoughts, words, and actions. I want to say next week's show, January 6th, I'm going to have Randy Marks, a shaman healer, and that should be really fun and exciting. Have a wonderful day. Bye.